So, we're here. We're live. We're doing it.
Yo, my brother.
How's it feel, Mr. Postman?
Damn, Mr. Postman. I love my new job. Delivering mail, walking 10 miles a day. I think last time we got together, I was still like in training.
Yeah.
I'm out on my own every day now, slowly figuring things out. And hopefully this is like the last job I'll ever need.
Yeah.
Because just walking around outside, I mean, the weather might suck here and there, but
you look good. You look better.
Even in that short amount of time.
Yeah.
2 weeks, I think.
And I don't even mean like weight loss. I just feel like you seem like you got some energy. You look refreshed.
Do I?
Yeah, you look refreshed. I know you just had a cup of coffee and now you're drinking, but but you look good for now.
Got a little bit of color in my face.
Yeah.
And I'm wearing long sleeves right now, so you can't see my arms, but
Sunburn.
I've got a tan going already.
Yeah, fuck yeah. The tannest ginger I know.
Yes.
Proud of you, man.
Finally.
After many years, God has blessed me.
Been walking around as a ghost for 3 decades.
Yeah. We should talk about the movie.
Yeah, let's talk about the movie.
This is your shit, man. I'm hyped.
We're doing the 1981 film Blowout by director Brian De Palma. You knew what this movie was before I recommended it. Right?
Yes. I knew it was a Trevolta film, and I knew it was about somebody that worked in movies. That's all I knew. I used to keep updated on Criterion releases, and I expressed this the last time we were on the air at the end, but when you recommended it, it's I was blown away because 2 weeks after this released on Criterion, somebody who had sold it to the local secondhand media store here in Ohio, Half Price Books. That's kind of all I knew. I'm like, okay, it's a Trevolta film. It must be good enough in some way to make it on Criterion. There must be something here. I didn't even know who Brian De Palma was until I watched this. I'm like, oh, it's the guy that did fucking Scarface. Okay.
He has a unique filmography.
Yeah.
Kind of all over the place in terms of subject matter, genre, and quality. I mean, he did Carrie, Mission Impossible, Carlito's Way, Dress to Kill. He seems to operate in the thriller genre a lot of the time. I've only seen Scarface and Mission Impossible outside of this film. I'm one of the people that doesn't really care for Scarface.
I haven't seen it since I was very young. And I don't know that I like Al Pacino, so.
Ooh, really?
I'm a big De Niro guy, man. As far as mob.
I love them both. Me and Liv watched The Godfather last week for the first time.
Dude, I've never seen it.
It was really good.
I've almost recommended it before. I bet it was fucking fantastic.
It's one of those movies that it established a lot of the tropes for the genre. So watching it for the first time, it doesn't blow you away in 2024, but it's a very well-crafted, perfectly acted film.
I've been really meaning to, for years. But I don't know that I'm ready to watch that for the first time. You can only watch something once, man. You can,
True.
or for the first time once. And it's one of those movies that I want to feel like I've seen it all. And I need to go and watch the masterpiece finally. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you'll never get there.
I know. When we watch Seven Samurai, even my first few times seeing that movie, I'm like, I'm not intelligent enough to appreciate this. I'm an idiot. This is perfect, and I don't know it yet. And even when we watched it, I'm blown away by this. It's so dense, man. It's so long and old as fuck. I love getting in that headspace of appreciating old films. This is kind of one of those movies, honestly. Very strange. 1980s, 81.
I feel like this film, there's something about it that reminds me of 60s for some reason, but with a new age edge added onto it.
I feel like when I watched it for the first time, I didn't know what year it had come out. I thought 70s. I thought it was a 70s film. It felt like a 70s movie that was made in the 80s, and it felt like an 80s movie that would have been done better in the 90s. Part of it is I wanted a little bit more seriousness from some of the plot. in the conspiracy aspects of it, there was a lot that I was okay, there's some really good plot points here, side stories, and script is tight. This film, if the script was given out now, I want to know what kind of movie would be made on a better budget or, newer technology. There's a cheapness involved. Like it feels like, obviously and it pays homage, as we'll talk, is like to like thriller, slasher films. Yes. It felt like a Friday the 13th movie when it first came on, which like, by the way, a lot of great tits, I will say.
We'll get into it.
Yeah. And, it excited me, and there was a flavor there that I really appreciated, and I feel like by the time we get to the other end, we'll completely understand why I think this movie works really well.
Yeah,
but like, there's an air of incompleteness for me in some aspects.
I can see that. And going to the back to you wanting more seriousness, one of Brian De Palma's stylistic hallmarks is camp. Purposely bad acting, for one. And I think I enjoy it to a degree, but there are parts where it goes too far for me.
Right.
With the Sally character, specifically, which we'll get into at some point.
Yeah.
It's a film that uses many elements. It's a little multi-genre. It shouldn't work, but it kind of does at the end of the day.
Right.
It's not a perfect film.
No.
But there's enough here that's like keeping me very interested, enough to where I've thought about it all the time since I saw it for the first time like 4 months ago.
For me, I loved like the B-roll, B-movie, slasher stuff. And yeah, it's super campy, and it's intended to be within the story. Obviously, our main character Jack works for a shit movie company, doing sound effects.
You're referring to like the intro, right? Our cold open.
Mm-hmm.
This might be bold to say, but this is like one of my new favorite movie intro sequences.
Yeah, I was very happy with what I saw.
We're getting like a Halloween parody.
Yeah. And it's like, at first I was like, oh God, what is this movie? Like on a cold open, I'm like, fuck, what has Getter got me into? Like, I'm like, oh, is this like some shit ball movie that's like known that I don't, like a disaster artist type shit, And like, okay, once like there was like 7 pairs of tits on the screen, I'm like, oh, this is like parody. I'm like, okay.
It's parody, but there's something very technically proficient about the way the sequence is executed.
Yeah.
We get these like long tracking POV shots, like unbroken camera edits going in and out of these windows of this like sorority house, I'm assuming. POV of like the hand with the knife, following these people around the house. It's really unique. And I love the sound design at the beginning of this, like where it's like really over the top. There's like this growling and wind combined
the whole time, and he can barely hear anybody underneath it. Yeah,
it's so fucking good. A little bit of I talked about Psycho a few minutes ago.
Right.
A little bit of a Psycho homage here, but the woman in the shower.
Mm-hmm.
De Palma has been criticized for stealing from Hitchcock many times throughout his filmography. There's actually 3 films specifically that he's stealing from in this movie, with Psycho, Rear Window, and Vertigo. His 3 best films, probably.
It's a love letter.
It is. I'm a sucker for this kind of stuff. Thrillers, meta commentary on movie making, hitting all the right spots for me.
I will say, and this is one of the major points that I wanted to bring up, with the filmmaking, as a couple of fellers, by the way, I haven't even talked about it, but
we always forget.
We always forget. A couple of dummies here. We got the Distiller Select Woodford Reserve tonight. We're doing a little Woodford Reserve rye. I haven't drank whiskey in a long time, and I've got more than I know what to do with, so I don't have to.
I don't remember the last podcast that we drank whiskey for. Stevie Wonder, maybe?
Yeah, I think so. I think it might be. I think it might be right. But as far as filmmaking goes and the meta commentary and all that stuff, I really appreciated that, especially like on the opening of the film. Like obviously, it's like pretty on the nose with the the slasher genre. But when we review films that have meta commentary, I always feel like it's modern. I'm like, oh, the fucking people aren't smart. They've never done this before. Like it happens all the time. We're just in a different era. So I find that really refreshing. And like that felt like it added a level of newness to the film. Like it helped it not feel old. It added some life to it. I'm like, okay, like there's still something to find here after all these years. It's not just some above average thriller film. Like there's something here that's given this a little extra oomph, which I enjoyed. And another aspect of that is like, how often is it about the guy that does the sound? Usually it's the guy behind the camera or an actor that sees something.
Directors, actors, and writers.
Right.
Especially. There's always films about writers.
Fucking assholes.
Fuck those guys.
Fucking, who do you think you are writing good shit?
That element is very unique.
Right.
And there's a lot of focus on it here. Like long, patient scenes of him just working with old audio equipment.
I really enjoyed the scene of him, like obviously the murder, but the stage that was set was very simple. Like he's in a park, he's recording sounds outside, and then witnesses a car drive off a bridge. Okay, simple setup. But I enjoyed the lead up. Like there's something about him going through isolated sounds. And granted, this is an 80s film. Like it's not some fucking master mix like Dune or some shit. But like,
yeah.
Like I'm like, okay, I see it here. They were like doing something with the technology that they had at the time. You know what I mean? Like there was a real focus on sound when you put yourself in that headspace of when this was made. Because like if you go back and watch Jaws and E.T., those movies are obviously they're fucking perfect, great masterpieces.
Stone
like
cold classics.
Spielberg, the movies that made him,
especially Jaws.
And it's like, but similar era, similar equipment. You're not too far along, and the sound is very compressed. A lot of dubbing, and then like in this scene specifically, I felt like it felt like there was a lot of budget here. Like with the owl and nice camera work that's being done as well, like focus in on the objects and stuff, and just love that level of attention that the film gives to it. It's not cheap. It's very serious about the way it presents its due.
Yes. Everything about the scene involving him recording the sound is so well executed on all fronts. I kind of want to talk about a very unique camera choice or a cinematography trick that is used in this sequence, where I don't think I've ever seen in any other films before. But it's called a split diopter shot, where they use a specific lens to where, how usually there's like something in focus, either in the foreground or the background. Well, this is giving you focus of both, but it's also adding this really weird depth of perception where you're looking at something really close and far away, and they both look close at the same time, because you see it with the frog and the owl and like the opening title crawl. There's like a news broadcast playing with Trevolta walking around his studio, and like there's a TV split with him in the background. It's used constantly throughout the film. Have you ever seen anything like this in other films?
No, but I also think the way the film is constructed, it is meant for this type of storytelling, because a lot of what's being done here, you're not really finding out with the character. You're seeing many perspectives of these situations play out. And in many cases, a character will be moving through a scene and they'll focus on audio, for example, of like the news broadcast, and Trevolta will be talking on the phone, or, somebody will be having a conversation, and then, somebody will be getting clues as to what's going on. You're seeing information being laid out for a character and they're missing it. And a lot of that's done with the camera and, with sound as well. And I think the film lends itself to that technique, because it's like, okay, like we're basically amateur detectiving, you're watching a character that has no business doing what he's doing, trying to uncover a conspiracy. And I think you can get away with some of those things. Like, what other movie would merit that kind of, require that technique being used?
Yeah.
The film's built from the ground up based on the script. And
great fucking point.
You know what I mean?
If used in another film, I could see it being like distracting, like overly stylish.
Right.
And it is overly stylish here, but it does fit the subject matter perfectly.
Right. Because it adds like a level of campiness. I don't know, it's riding a really thin line of campy and seriousness. Like, there were times when it lost me, and then I'd get pulled right back in. Like, there's some shitty acting and like some characters where you're just like, God, you fucking idiot. And you just can't help but just be like, you fucking idiot. There's some small things like that kind of pull me away from the appreciation of stuff like with technicalities. But you're right, for some reason I'm still like, I really like it, but I don't know, like I want to hate it sometimes. At the same time I'm like, God, there's something really good here.
It's very confusing, like emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a trashiness about it, like well-crafted trashiness.
Yeah, like, and a lot of it's like some characters add to the level of trashiness. Like, we kind of get down in the dirt here with like the guy that employs Sally and
our photographer character.
Yeah,
who's been like misplaced from like a 1940s movie into this film.
Oh yeah, I'm here. I'm talking like this. Mm-hmm. I'm John Mulvaney. I don't know.
It was quite the choice.
Yeah, I
think it does work, like that character in certain scenes, but there are also other scenes where I'm like, get off my TV type shit.
He's like the version of myself that I fear. I'm like, oh, this is the man that I could be if I wanted to be an absolute piece of shit.
Come on, toots. Like that kind of shit.
Come on, Bam. Come on. I didn't know no better.
If we're like looking towards the future, like after the release of this film, I kind of think of certain eras of David Fincher's filmography, not his like most well-crafted stuff like Social Network, Zodiac, Fight Club.
Right.
He has like some in-between films like Gone Girl, The Game, Panic Room, where it's like film equivalent of those magazines that are like by the checkout at the grocery store.
Yeah.
It's like we're giving a high level of craft to something C level, if that makes sense.
What's The Game?
It's Michael Douglas, Sean Penn.
Okay. Yeah.
It's really good, actually. It's like a good B+ thriller type film, which is kind of how I feel about this film.
We've never talked about Michael Douglas.
We haven't. I don't know a whole lot of like great Michael Douglas films.
Or like Harrison Ford.
Have we never? We haven't, have we?
We got to get there. We'll get there.
I don't want to talk about Star Wars, I'll tell you that.
Me neither. I would rather talk about like Indiana Jones or one of Harrison Ford's serious roles like Patriot or... No, it's not Patriot. That's fucking Mel Gibson.
Fugitive,
Air Force One.
Yeah, those are good.
Yeah, we can talk about those. That man's been like 40 for the last 70 years. I don't know, man. I feel like this film, like, again, we're like talking about like, okay, it feels like old for an 80s film. That character choice is definitely one of those. Like, it's something about... It's the set and setting that it's taking place in, and it's the filmmaking of the 80s. It kind of reminds me of like The Terminator, where he walks into the bar and is like, fuck you, man, and gets a fucking shotgun to the chest or whatever. You know what I mean? Action films did not get like those serious drama or like the camera work of like the 90s and the early 2000s. Like, that didn't come in obviously until those points, but like those were considered serious back then, in that kind of way. Like, I don't know. Like, I want that level of treatment given here so desperately, because I think the script is fucking superb, but it like lives in this time capsule.
I don't know. I feel like it feels farther along than 1981.
You feel that way?
I think so. Yeah. Like, stylistically, like this is given a treatment that you don't see given to other films of a similar genre.
Yeah, because later in the film there is a lot of camera work that's done that's like pretty fucking weird and different for the 80s.
You talked about like writing the line like tone-wise, but like technicality-wise, or just in general, this is an entertaining film.
Yeah.
This is something you could catch on TV, like when people have cable.
Yeah.
But it's given like an art house treatment at the same time, but not in a way where it feels alienating to anybody.
There's definitely elements of that. Like, the art house feel it reminds me of like The House, like the Japanese horror film.
Yeah.
Obviously not to that degree. That's like fucking nightmare fuel, like psychedelia, but...
I thought that film was really funny.
It's weird.
It is.
But, it's a level of campiness too. It rides that line, and I don't know why. I don't feel like I can grasp onto it. I feel like it's a new identity.
Yes.
Like there's nothing that I've really seen quite like this. Also, like Trevolta. When have we talked about Trevolta other than like the Scientology guy? You know, Battlefield Earth or whatever the fuck it is.
I think we've brought up Pulp Fiction a few times over the years, which I think this is the film that actually convinced Tarantino to cast Trevolta in Pulp Fiction. This is one of Tarantino's favorite films of all time.
Makes sense.
It does. Like the trashiness meets artistic quality type stuff. We'll get back to him eventually.
We will.
Been a while.
Sorry, I won't go there.
I would like to talk about John Trevolta, since you brought him up. A man with so many highs and lows in his career, a 50-year career at this point.
Yeah, he hasn't really done anything in a while.
He's kind of like the film equivalent of like the band Weezer. He's got his few classics.
There's a lot of shit.
A lot of shit.
A lot. A lot of paydays.
I think by the time this came out, he'd already won a Best Actor award at the Oscars for Saturday Night Fever. Grease is in the top 30 grossing films of all time when adjusted for inflation. Like, it's weird because at one time I think he was considered side by side with a Pacino or a De Niro. Like, he had that
level of stardom,
like that potential too. This is one of his first real serious roles where he's not singing and dancing or something, you know?
I feel like we always say this. God, we always talk, or at least I do. I want to see career revivals from like some of these actors. Like in terms of, I want the Safdie brothers to do everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like so bad.
Do you have somebody in mind in particular?
I really want Harrison Ford, now we started talking about him. I want Harrison Ford to have a real fucking movie again. Like
a modern day drama.
Yeah, like so bad. Like, cause I'm going to be like, okay, when he is in Blade Runner 2049, I'm like, that's the dude I want. That's the guy. I want the guy that like, there's a fucking fire behind his eyes. Like there's a soul in there. I don't want the Luke, Leia, I have a whip and I'm old.
Harrison Ford infamously doesn't give a fuck about anything.
I know. No one could do it.
Even during his heyday, like he did not care.
He's a carpenter, dude. He doesn't give a fuck about anything. He's a fucking blue collar. He's a blue collar man that's an actor. Like, yeah, he wants to drink fucking beer and be a boss. I don't know what to tell you.
I'm trying to think of somebody else that like deserves that treatment.
I want to see Daniel Day-Lewis do something that's fucking riveting again.
He's retired.
He says that he's retired. He'll come back again. Comes out of the fucking...
so.
He's a weird guy. Weird dude. Shoe cobbler.
Method actor.
I don't know, man. Travolta's a weird... He sits in a weird place because it's like, yeah, and then he got like really into Scientology and just seems like a weird guy. He had a lot of hair on his chest back in the day, apparently.
He did. I will say I enjoy him a lot here. Even more so than like his performance in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, well, he feels like a real person here.
Yeah.
The guy in Pulp Fiction feels like the idiot that's been given too much responsibility and like won't show that he's an idiot kind of thing. The character that he plays in Pulp Fiction feels like the guy that like seems more intelligent because he doesn't open his mouth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In this one, he feels like a normal dude that's like trying to overcome like a really serious challenge and like he's making it work. He's written really smart. It's not too good to be true or like, you know, unbelievable. You don't have to suspend your disbelief. Like it's playing into, you find out what his career is and, you know, he witnesses something and he's going to put the clues together. And I feel like that's hard to do. I feel like he has a lot of agency within the film.
He does.
He's not really outsmarting anybody per se, but you really appreciate his attempt.
There's something about the scene where directly after the assassination occurs and he's brought into the hospital to like give an eyewitness testimony.
Yeah.
His responses to like their attempt to like keep him quiet. It's very unmovie-like the way he responds to them. With like, are you sure you didn't just hear the blowout from the tire? Are you sure you heard a shot? He's like, I'm pretty fucking sure. I do sound for movies. Like, the way he acts the scene feels very everyman-ish. It's not a monologue or anything.
Right, exactly. There's a lot of, it's realistic. It feels like the frustration when you're trying to like really convey your point to somebody that won't fucking listen and he's getting aggravated. And there's a lot of back and forth. And then it happens other times in the film where like, his tape gets erased and the detective down at the police station is, busting his chops about it. And he's not written so to the point where he's like, I was trained many years, and now you've taken my daughter. Like, he's not getting like that.
It's weird because he sits alongside overly campy characters for the most part.
Right.
He's like the one realistic beacon that we have in this film full of like caricatures.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I think it works here for one reason and one reason only.
Why is that?
And that is because historically, when anybody has tried to uncover a conspiracy, they are met by the powers that be to be dismissed. And he's written in a way where he's able to move through the plot with a sense of hope and agency, and you see him figure it out. And the characters around him either A, are written in a way that they are trying to be dismissive of him because they're the police or a politician or yada yada, or they're just dumb. And it adds a level of frustration. And I think, as we get towards the end, where you really get to see him kind of break into like the madman level of
like hysteria.
Hysteria, exactly. And then like that is what happens to those people that try to uncover conspiracy.
He's been brought there naturally.
Yes.
Through the sequence of events.
That's the only reason it works. Like, if the script in the story was not this, then having like a really competent person surrounded by idiots would not work in any other facet. Like, the story is crafted for other people to fail and for other people to be incompetent. I mean, like, this is being very forgiving because, like, on surface level, somebody that maybe wouldn't get this movie for some, like, I feel like this could be kind of overlooked because of the tone that is being set by many characters in many situations. Like, for instance, like the terrible scream that they're trying to refilm, like that bit, we'll get there. But in the beginning of the film, through my first watch, I don't know if you felt the same way, but you're like, ugh. Like, I was like, this is like kind of low even for what I thought was going to be a good movie. And then obviously it works.
There's like an immediate cut to Trevolta literally saying that was shit.
Yes. Yes. And like, getting to witness bad acting it's very weird. Like, inside of a film. You know what I mean?
Like purposeful
bad acting. It like, there's some third wall shit happening here, you know? Or fourth wall or whatever the fuck.
We like kind of talked about that stuff when we did like Mulholland Drive last year, where there's like a melodramatic soap opera nature to the acting in that film and other David Lynch films too. It is weird, and I still have a hard time getting over it because I want to talk about Nancy Allen, Sally.
Yeah.
RoboCop's partner.
Yeah, dude, that's where she's from. Like, where the fuck have I seen this girl before?
Another film with like kind of bad acting on purpose too.
Yeah. I don't know, man. The 80s got away with it. Man, they got away with it.
It's hard to do now. Like, I can't think of a recent example where like bad acting was used to the strength of a film.
I feel like, unfortunately, bad acting now is just like, I just think of like the overly commercialized movies.
Like overacting to certain situations, like in comedy,
like comedic and action. Just, I don't know, man. Like the shit no one's gonna remember. That's what I view as bad acting now. I don't really think that you could do this now in any way, really.
No, you couldn't.
Usually, it's not bad acting. It's usually superb acting with comedic relief from very serious roles that are done really well and like situational. And like, that's not bad acting. It's just like for example, like The Lighthouse is one of my favorites, where like that movie's like really fucking funny at times. And
hilarious in moments.
Yeah. God, man, that movie.
That's a favorite for sure.
Golly, man.
Hey, the trailer for Nosferatu just dropped.
I have not seen that yet. So
I haven't watched it either.
Motherfucker, we're gonna see it later. I'm always hyped for Eggers now. And I feel like Defoe is having a career revival. Defoe's in a lot right now. A lot. He was just in another film that just released, Kind Things.
Kinds of Kindness.
Kinds of Kindness, I'm sorry.
The new Yorgos Lanthimos film.
What was his other one? Good Things?
Poor Things.
God damn it.
He's done a few, like The Lobster, Killing of a Sacred Deer. He's like pitch black comedy drama thriller, question mark. He's an interesting one. We'll get to him at some point.
I'm sure it's kind of playing into similar vibes like Luca Guadagnino. Like bad acting in like Suspiria, that's bad acting. Didn't do it
in parts.
Yeah. God, I hate that movie. I hate that movie for a lot of reasons.
I hate a lot of things about that film, but I think there's enough interesting stuff going on to where I'm like, I don't hate it overall.
I think mildly entertained and fucking disturbed beyond belief. I also like really enjoyed what's it called? So,
Bones and All.
Bones and All.
I need to rewatch that one.
That movie kind of struck the same chord as Titan.
Okay.
For me.
Think so?
Like in the end, I wanted to weep, but I'm like, why am I crying? You know.
When I watched that, I broke it up into like 3 different viewings because I'm an idiot for some reason. I'll go back to it because his most recent film, Challengers, was like it might be my favorite movie of the year.
I haven't seen it yet. I need to.
It's so fucking good. Like, how do you turn tennis into a thriller?
Yeah.
It's like an erotic thriller type thing.
Oh, God. Watch it naked.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. I remember when people used to recommend Game of Thrones to me. I'll never forget. I think I was like 18, and Daniel at Domino's recommended it to me. It's like, oh, dude, you gotta watch it. And everybody would hype me up. Like, oh, yeah, dude, you gotta watch it. And then they were like, yeah, you gotta watch it naked. And I'm like, I don't want to watch this.
I think he told me to do the same thing.
I'm like, at all. I'll never watch this. It's similar with Andrew when he recommended an artist to me one time. Oh God. And he was like, yeah, I like to put it on and make love. And I'm like, dude, I'll never be able to listen to this without thinking of you fucking. Thanks a lot, man. Like, you fucking bastard.
Thanks, Andrew.
It's like opening the door and shutting it right in my fucking face immediately.
Miss that guy.
I love that guy. Oh, man. What a G.
Where'd we get here? How'd we get here?
I need a beer. We're going to talk about Nancy Allen.
Piss break. This is one of the cases where like the campiness doesn't really work for me. And I don't know if it's the acting or the writing of the character. Because when we first meet her, of course, she's rescued out of the car, drowning in the lake. And then we cut to her in the hospital, and I assume she's recovering from a concussion of some sorts in this scene. So the weird personality can kind of like be...
She's also been sedated as well.
That too, yes. But it feels like she doesn't stray terribly far from that personality outside of that.
Yeah.
She feels a bit like a little kid in a woman's body a lot of the time. I don't like that.
Yeah. And like they even played the angle where it was like, okay, we get farther into the plot and, you know, you find out she was in on it in some way.
Right.
And that hasn't been revealed to us yet. And it's like, oh, she's about to play John Trevolta. Like she's about to drop the act. That's what I thought was going to happen. Where it was like, oh, she's going to stop playing stupid here soon and be like, it was me all along. Like, I'm the bad guy. I thought we would at least get a little bit of a taste of that. Like, her having a little bit more of a serious role involved. But, like, then you just find out, like, oh, the twist is, like, yeah, she was involved, but, like, she doesn't even really know why either.
Yeah.
And it kind of felt like there's a little bit of, like, that James Bond, like, oh, the female partner is actually double cross, you know. I kind of thought we were gonna go down that, and then you'd be like, you broke my heart, kind of shit. But you know, didn't really happen. Like, really strange. I don't know if it would work, but
she's not the femme fatale. She's not like the romantic lead. Like it kind of doesn't, I don't feel any particular way about her usage here.
Yeah, and also like ultimately she just feels like a vehicle for tragedy, which I don't really know that I felt attached to her.
No.
In that way where like, don't get me wrong, like I still felt that scene.
Of course.
But like, oh dude, that's like worst nightmares coming true, my friend.
We'll get to that. The ending.
But like, yeah, and I wish there was a little bit more to her as a character. It felt like we just had this with Walter Mitty, where like, Kristen Wiig, great actress, does okay in the movie. Kind of like just plays the imaginary friend. And it's kind of a similar tone here.
If we're comparing the two, Kristen Wiig and Nancy Allen, in these two wildly different movies, there's something very active about Sally, but it's not hitting quite the way it should.
Yeah, she's on screen a lot. Her range is like very small though. There's not a lot of depth to her character's actions, and you don't really get to see. Like, I feel like we should have saw more internal struggle from her, because I kind of felt like we were following Jack the whole time, and he would convince her to stay or do this and do that, and it was like on a dime she'd be like, yeah, okay. I never felt like her actions could be taken seriously because she's so flowing with the wind. Like, oh, here I am, and this is what I do, and she's written in a way where she's really stupid. I mean, just for a lack of a better term, she's just stupid. And she's like a stupid person in a very serious event. And it feels like she's out of place.
She does feel very out of place. When you say that she's flowing with the wind, I think about the first scene where Jack brings her home from the hospital and they're in this like motel.
Right.
And he brings up listening to the tape of her crash, and she all of a sudden is like, I gotta go, I don't feel comfy doing this. And then Jack brings up, well, you do owe me a drink for saving your life. And then she immediately cuts to, well, all right, I guess so, like in a happy way.
Exactly. Like her emotions change on a dime just based off of like what Jack says or like what another person says. It's just like a very like stereotypical like dumb blonde type thing.
Oh, geez, mister.
Yeah, and even like her relationship with the guy that like hired her and everything, like that was weird. It's like, honey, don't you know not to fucking go back? I just felt sorry for her. And I don't even know if I mean that in a good way.
I'm right there with you.
I also want there to be more from her to like justify Jack's interest in her.
Like she's just a woman that's there.
Yes, exactly. Like I'm more interested in him, in his pursuit of this. Like, but it still works. Like, don't get me wrong, it still works. And like, we'll get there. But it's something about she doesn't realize what kind of danger she's in. And it's really frustrating as a viewer to be forgiving of that, because I don't really feel like we get many moments of her feeling independent in any way. And maybe our character's supposed to be written that way, like, from start to finish. I don't know. There's also like, once we're in it, I feel like from about the middle point to rising action, we're getting into like this no-name fucking hitman, serial killer plot.
Burke.
Yeah. Which is like, he usually plays I don't know, he seems like a family man type of guy. Who's that actor?
John Lithgow.
Yeah.
I know him from like a 90s, early 2000s show called Third Rock from the Sun. He was like the grandpa in the first Planet of the Apes movies.
Yeah, he was. He's Papa on Interstellar.
He is. Yeah, holy shit. I forgot about that. He has played like menacing killer before though. In the early 2010s, I followed the show Dexter, unfortunately. And he's actually like the season killer in one of the seasons of that show. He's actually one of the better ones.
Okay.
So there's like a tie-in there with like the characteristics of this character. You brought up Terminator earlier, and I thought about that in relation to
this character,
this assassin.
Okay.
Cold, calculated, using the phone booth to his advantage. which I think is a thing from Terminator.
It felt really weird because it's like, okay, we've established that a conspiracy happened and we get introduced to like politicians and policemen and like the news talking about it. And then it's like, the more we find out, it's like, okay, we just have like this rogue fucking crazy motherfucker.
Yeah.
That like has decided to like, he's a serial killer.
There is a conspiracy.
Right.
To defame a politician.
Exactly. But it gets lost.
This man has stepped it up farther than that.
Exactly. It turns into like, he's just like a maniac. The maniac is the antagonist kind of thing. I don't know how I feel about that.
It's hard to see what De Palma was trying to say with this film because of that one element.
And here's the thing. We're coming up on a fucking presidential election. Like, it might be one of the most important ones in the next, or maybe like the last 20 years.
Which is part of the reason why I recommended this now.
Yeah. I fucking knew. Once we got into this and once I watched the film, I was like, this fucking motherfucker is going to get me ranting. This fucking motherfucker is going to get me going on.
I'm shocked we haven't gotten here sooner.
Well, you know, you got to lay the groundwork. You got to get there. You got to talk about UFC for 20 minutes off the air. we got to have a topic off air to really expand upon before we can get into this. Dude, like, I don't know. I'm frustrated by it on screen a little bit because it's like, what happens when you just like take chaos of a situation and like extrapolate? Okay, like, does it mean that people conspire and do these things and then like in the chaos of it all, more things happen because of it? When you think about the CIA and the FBI and all these government agencies that are very clearly tied to like some deep government conspiracies, what is he trying to say? It's like, okay, like you get a couple psychopaths in high levels of government and they take it upon themselves to go do these things, which, like, by the way, it happens now. Like, I shouldn't say this because I'll be on a fucking list, but like the ATF, like that's a government agency that like just murdered a man in his own home like a couple months ago. Like they did a no-knock warrant at like 4 a.m. and with like 20 men, and they like cut the power to his home and they went in and they fucking murdered the dude. It's like they did a sting operation on an American citizen.
In the pitch black.
In the pitch black of morning.
He's going for the gun.
And they killed him in the middle of his... and they didn't... You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like they didn't serve him. They went in and they murdered a man. They've killed people's dogs and like... It's like a rogue... I consider it a rogue government agency and like they're on trial. I shouldn't say trial. There's no trial involved, but there's an investigation. And it's like, okay, well, when you think about stuff like this happening, it's like what happens when people in power decide to abuse power? It creates... this ripple effect. It's also on the backdrop of a Liberty Bell festival or whatever, like a 4th of July type celebration.
I thought this was a 4th of July celebration from like my memory of the film, watching it a few months ago. Is the Liberty Bell celebration a real thing? Because this film was like very obviously shot in the fall.
Right. I don't know. I don't know if it's 4th of July, but it's some sort of patriotic event.
It's trying to give off that aura.
And there's like a lot of like American flag imagery. Like I remember in one point, shot wise, we're hovering above a flagpole, you know, watching a car drive in. Like many things like that. And then like you get to see the Liberty Bell billboard and then someone gets murdered while that's happening. You know, like subtle things that like tie in American patriotism. Like I don't know if he's like trying to say something here with it, but it feels like maybe he couldn't get away with it in the 80s kind of thing.
Maybe not. There's something very deliberate about many elements here that are like
Right.
trying to go for that. Because it's like lighting choices where you kind of brought it up a second ago, but even when Jack and Sally are in the motel early on, like post-hospital, like the wallpaper in the room is like this pattern of red, white, and blue. When she's being chased by John Lithgow in the end, like she literally is up against a banner of the American flag.
Under fireworks.
Yes. It's weird because the film doesn't feel like it's taking a...
It moves through it on the backdrop. Like the plot moves through it and then like only after the fact do you realize.
Like, is it trying to work on a subliminal,
Right.
like if you know type level?
I know.
We know.
We know.
Yeah.
You can never take the glasses off. Once you put them on, you can never take them off.
the film doesn't let itself get distracted by that theme, even though it feels like it should.
Right. It's very subtle. Very, very subtle. I personally think it's one of the reasons why I like the movie and why it's sticking with me. Because, like, there are elements where I'm like, ugh, like, I don't like this. You know, obviously with our female lead and kind of feeling like our contract killer is just kind of a nothing burger at times.
His portrayal is very great in certain moments, though.
Right. And I don't mean...
Like, as the big picture,
yeah,
it doesn't feel like it's getting there quite yet.
Like, you know, when you talked about, like, Fincher earlier, like, one of the reasons why Zodiac is entertaining and gripping is because, like, it, like, throws you down the rabbit hole. It's like, how deep does a rabbit hole go? You're getting a history lesson. Obviously, it's dramatized and yada yada, but there's something about conspiracy where it's like, I want to jump down the rabbit hole. And you're kind of like just on like the surface level. It's like, okay, you find out who the killer is, but like you don't get to really expand upon like, and I don't really feel like I get to see those connections per se. And not even like you don't got to tell me, but I want to see it. I want to feel the behind the scenes working onto our civilian characters. I want to see that force of, you know, the eye in the sky, big brother, the deep conspiracy. I want to feel that weighing on our characters, but really it feels like our characters just find out who the hitman is in the end kind of thing. And you see a hitman work through it's not like a government thing. It's just like a maniac character. I have a problem with that a little bit.
So do I.
Like I want to feel more of the oppressiveness. Maybe it came through earlier on when this film was released. Maybe we've been spoiled by, you know, what we've seen now, but I do appreciate, you know, the imagery of the American flag being used throughout the film. Like, I mean, it happened, like, the final climax happens during the parade. You know, it kind of shits on him like a fucking Navy man, too. Like, a Navy man gets a blowjob from a hooker in a telephone booth. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
it's like, it kind of shits on the serviceman in that way, and
I didn't even think about that.
You know,
really.
Like there's a little bit of a, you know, spin on him and kind of puts him down. And then like he also is a piece of shit. And I don't know, like maybe it kind of hit in that way earlier on. It's something about I want to feel the big man weighing down from far away. Something about it didn't work because you get that government official being like, oh, you broke the plan. I never want to hear from you again.
And that's the last time you see anybody on that side.
Right. And it's like, it felt like I felt like we just got like dropped off. Like, like there was no like finish. Somebody should at least been, and it doesn't have to be like this dramatic, tight tension, but like with like the same feeling that Robert Downey Jr. gives off when he loses
Oppenheimer.
Like when even his like assistant is like, oh, we got you, bitch. It doesn't have to be like that from the government officials. I don't need to see that level of, you know, frustration and drama, but you know, I want to see like maybe like one of the politicians gets investigated or something. Like there needs to be.
Is it realistic in that way? Where like nobody is held accountable?
Right.
Like that's the end of the tracks right there. Your insane, off the cuff type people are like left to just do their thing, and there's no way to tie it back to the official proceedings because nothing comes of this situation in the end.
Right. I find something to be desired in that aspect.
I do too. I don't know what I'd want it to do differently in a specific way, but I know it's not hitting in the way that I want it to.
I also want to say, like, this movie's kind of short. It's an hour and 48 minutes.
Dude, give me more 90-minute films.
It's tight. It's tight.
In all honesty.
Dude, it went by really smoothly. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. When I watched it, I knew I had to go to work today. And I was like, I need to bust this out and get this over with. I was like, man, I'm going to lose my whole evening. And I was done by 9 o'clock. And I'm like, oh, like, I can kind of chill. And I was like pleasantly surprised by that. I will say, I think you could fill 15 minutes with what we just asked for. Easily. Like you could write that in easily.
Sure. Yeah.
And one of the things why I have frustration with it is because you are coming from that point of, yes, you're going to cut ties with the politician, but it's so abrupt that I feel like it doesn't add the weight that is necessary for our antagonist to feel like he can drive us into the back half of the film. It kind of weakens my feeling for the film overall. And it's just because we've worked really hard to kind of like build up a really nice, intricate web of a crime. And God, it just feels like
it's so weird.
I want him to be a bigger player. Like, maybe he kills a politician or something. Like, make him, obviously, like he fucking kills 2 or 3 other women, and like that's a big deal. And like those killings are like great scenes. They're fantastic, which they play into what we talked about earlier of like homage to slashers and thrillers and what have you. But it's something about it feels light. It's something about it just feels light.
It
from
does.
Start to finish. I just can't quite put my finger on it.
It feels like we kind of get the legs cut off of that plot, like in the third act, where like
Right.
acts 1 and 2, we've really been building towards what is the mystery, what is going on here, and it is very like deep as a puddle, type thing.
Exactly. And it's coming on the heels of Sally just kind of not really being much of a character, and like we're getting exposition through her. You know, we're discovering like, okay, you know, she plays a role in this, and you know, he finds the photos, and like there's kind of like this weird lovey thing happening that's not super developed, but we're doing something here.
That never amounts to anything, really.
Right. And
they share a kiss, right?
Right.
But just one.
And I'm not mad about that. Like, it's, again, that's kind of a similar situation we talked about last time where, like, and Walter Mitty, like, we don't really know if, like, they make a relationship, but it, like, there's a friendship kind of thing involved.
I don't need it.
Right. Right. It's not an element that needs to be extrapolated on anymore. But in this particular case, it kind of felt like we were building into, like, this weird rabbit hole, and then you kind of get like the lightness of their character interactions. Like, you know, they kind of feel like a little bit of Lovebirds, but it's not over the top. And like, that's great. It's realistic in that way, even though the situation isn't. But lightening up the tone in that way from their interactions, dropping into kind of a nothing burger antagonist, it's frustrating for me in that way.
No, same here. I feel the exact same way. I think I'm so tricked by the stylized presentation.
Exactly.
Which is like so well executed that it convinces me that something more happened.
In the moment, like from start to finish watching the film, I'm along for the ride. Like, I enjoyed it. And like, upon further analysis between you and I, it's like, yeah, there's a lot working here. But there's also like a lot. I mean, I even acknowledge it subconsciously while in the film where I'm like, okay, I like this, but like, I know it's not perfect. Like, I know it's not perfect. And I know I know I'm disappointed by a couple big things here, but it worked. And I think partly because, and we'll get there, there's a certain like level of campiness to the ending.
We will get there. Yes.
I want to talk about the soundtrack.
The score?
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought this up because this is the next thing I was going to ask you about. You were humming it earlier, like before we recorded. Yeah. I'm curious, is that a good thing?
I think the theme of this film, like the actual theme,
I like it.
It's very good.
I like it.
Because it's honestly like kind of the shit I've been listening to. Like we talked earlier a little bit off the air about like piano jazz, like film score. I'm in that all the time. And this like really hit for me in many ways. And it's not just that I enjoyed like these actual, you know, symphony strings but like found it really weird. Like there's a lot of like, there's an electric guitar like that. Like the fucking detective cop, you know, electric guitar.
It's somewhere between like noir and like soap opera.
Yes, it's like noir action film. It's like distorted reverb, high pitch, like down the neck scale. It's just, I don't know, man. I found it.
No, I'm glad you liked this.
I like that element because yes, there is noir elements to this film.
I thought,
God, it's such a weird movie, man.
It is.
It's so weird. It's playing on so many different angles.
I thought you were gonna dislike the score because, like, I love the motifs.
Oh yeah,
in the instrumentation, but there's something like gaudy about the way it's like put into the film.
Yeah,
Like it's overly grimy melodrama type stuff. Like it could come across very overly cheesy.
I don't know what this fucking movie is doing, but it's doing it. It does feel like soap opera a lot of the times. Like, oh my God, dude, the fucking breakaway bottle on the back of that guy's head was like the cheapest fucking, like, there's no water on the bed after you break a bottle over somebody. Like, there's no wet spot. And like, she hits him like with the wrist. The leverage point for hitting him is the wrist. Like a fucking 45-degree hit from the wrist breaks the bottle.
That's my least favorite scene in the movie, by the way.
Yeah, it's bad. Like
It's bad.
It's bad. It's terrible. But like, they just fucking snuck that in there, you know?
It was like totally unwarranted. Like the sexual advance by like,
Yeah. What the fuck was that? That really fucking pissed me off.
like I know he's a sleazy character, but like these two characters have history, and it felt very like it wasn't built upon
At all.
No.
He's also such a caricature where it's like, I don't feel like he's even capable of doing something like this.
No.
He doesn't feel that scummy. You know what I mean? Like, he talks like this. Oh, honey, I didn't know nothing. Where, like, you could do that with a guy that's, like, serious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's just an idiot. It'd be different if she was an idiot and she went to somebody that was, like, major Machiavellian manipulative. Like, that'd be a different story. You could maybe get away with that more with his actions. But, like, his introduction is him in the mirror knowing that she's coming. And he's got, like, a fucking fedora on and a very heavily stained wife beater, and he's got a bottle of alcohol in his hand.
Throws the TV on to make it look like he's up to something before
Yes.
she gets there.
He just felt like really cheap. With like, I feel like I've already had enough cheap tricks.
Yeah. It's a little late in the game to be doing this kind of deal.
And I also feel like it's frustrating as a viewer. When we talked about it earlier, where like Jack, our character, he's the most competent and he's surrounded by idiots. And so when you're away from Jack, it like really cheapens the movie because he's the only one like kind of holding the glue together. And like, again, the scenes with the serial killer, they are good. They're well crafted and from start to finish, like the killing scenes are good chase scenes. They have a really nice build up. And there's a lot of that in this movie. Like there's a lot of really nice tension that's built.
Yeah.
But it's like littered with some garbage here and there, which is weird. For some reason, the tension doesn't get cut a whole lot, you know? Already expressed that point where, like, yeah, you kind of get dropped off into an antagonist that's not that great. He doesn't feel as well tied in as he should. But the ending of the film really builds it up again, like, quickly. Like, the steam builds fast.
Oh, my Lord.
Which, like, I was not expecting, by the way, at all. It really got me. I was like, I got up off the couch, like, while it was happening and, like, pacing and, like,
Really?
like, yeah, oh, yeah, dude, I was into it. Like, the fucking damsel in distress fucking trope, that gets me every time. I don't know what it is, but the movie sucked me back in for that reason. Like, it, like, broke my heart, and then it was like, oh, yeah, but you still love me, bitch. And, like, fucking bitch slapped me and was like, oh, it's good. Don't you forget, like, we're going to, like, land this thing. I didn't know how it was going to either. At all. When we were in the middle of the film, I was thinking about the beginning of the film a lot, and I'm like, this is such a weird, like, I could not grasp how we were gonna get there. You know, I was like, okay, the way it started and the way it ends, it's a perfect ribbon, and we don't have to get that far down the hole, but just yet. But I'm like, when it builds that tension back up, I was like, okay, yeah, we're gonna do this. Like, we're gonna land the plane. Like, we're going to get this thing back on the ground because, like, we get so far out from where we started, I'm like, I don't know how this is going to end in a way that's going to be meaningful, or I'm going to step away feeling like it wasn't just some action movie or thriller. I was pleasantly surprised.
The third act is really strange. The second act is like all like listening, photographs, cutting together audio samples, talking to people on the phone. And then we kick into like an action set piece all of a sudden of like John Travolta. This is after like Nancy is with Burke and getting taken away by him. And we get a scene that I feel is a little out of place with him like driving through the parade.
Yeah, and I'm like, who the fuck let him? He should be handcuffed to the ambulance.
Yeah. Even like the plot device of him driving into like a storefront window and like getting knocked out. I think that scene is filmed during the day, and then we cut to the night.
Ooh.
So like hours have passed? Question mark? Like that little section doesn't feel right to me.
He has like his O.J. Simpson fucking helicopter
does.
chase. It's not a Bronco, but
That scene was well executed and choreographed by many extras and stunt drivers and special effects, but I don't know if I needed that in this film. You could cut that scene and like lead to
you could have kept it smaller.
Lead to a more natural path of events to have John Travolta like find them at this parade. Like I didn't need a car chase scene.
He could have been like walking the crowd.
Yeah.
More.
Because the film decides to get smart again immediately after he wakes up. Ties back to his like audio roots where he's like listening to like the sounds in the background to find her.
Yes.
Like you're on the boardwalk, the fireworks, yada, yada.
We should talk about more. Like, I really loved. Okay, obviously, yes, it's about a guy that's doing sound for a film. I haven't appreciated sound for a film as much as I have right now in my life. Like,
yeah,
in the most recent years, especially with like certain film scores, like especially Dune and Oppenheimer, when we went and seeing those in theaters, like I have enough film going experience where I'm like, I can either have the best seat in the house and it be perfect visually, or I know a theater to go to for sound. Like I know what to skip out on. Like, okay, I don't want to go sit in this theater in a standard viewing because I know this seat, it feels like you're sitting in the front row, but really you're in the middle of the theater. Like there are a couple, rooms like that in certain cinemas around here. And then like when we went and saw Dune together, you and I, that was my fourth time fucking seeing the movie.
A wonderful film, by the way.
I'm so glad we went and saw that together. I'm so glad our wives
too.
But, dude, like, I knew visually what I was seeing there, but hearing the mix in that room was like the next level that I had missed out on my previous 3 viewings of the film. And I guess it's nice knowing that in the 80s, a film centered around a sound guy is like given this much attention. And like, I feel like that's one of the major reasons why it's on Criterion. It's like a movie about filmmaking to an extent, and
not done in like a masturbatory way.
Right. It makes you forget a lot of the times that he's a sound man. And then there's other times where like we're sitting here like just we're spending 5 minutes going back and forth over one sound that he's listening to. And I think that adds to his character where it's like you really get to see the process, and it's like the only time that you get to see like this attention to detail given to a character, which is again kind of frustrating to me because I know it can be done in this film. Again, tying back to that's what I want from our killer and Sally and government officials. Like something about me wants everybody to be given this treatment, because I think if you did, the campiness would be like, it would put that campiness in, it would put it like, this is pure camp and it's not detrimental to the film because you have so much more structure behind these elements of the film that it would really play into that. Where like I think he was definitely trying to go for that in a certain way, but there's something about like giving this film a pure blockbuster cut where like those campy elements can like kind of hold this film back from like being like an all-time masterpiece. Like it's something
I
about,
agree.
you know what I mean? Like there should be a little bit more here, and it'd be considered one of the best films of all time.
It's super frustrating.
Yes.
It's also like kind of a part of the appeal. Like,
Exactly.
Of like what makes this so unique. Like I wouldn't single this out necessarily if it was like a perfect film.
If the things that we want were there, this would be an entirely different conversation. We'd be like, oh, wasn't that great? And wasn't that great? Like something about, we say it every time, but something about like the mixed bag movies, like really help you appreciate what makes a perfect movie. Like this is a very good movie. Very good. I would recommend this to many people. This is that kind of movie where like there's enough here for like everybody to enjoy just a little bit.
I want to shout it from the fucking rooftops.
Right. It's being held back in a way. And it was really refreshing as a film goer to be like, okay, I've never seen anything quite like this. Like it's so unique. So many things happening. One of the criticisms of the film might be that there's so much happening that it's leaving more to be desired. You know what I mean? Like there's so much stuff going on that like you want everything, every element to be that perfect.
It's a bit of a buffet. Our auteur filmmaking mixed with like trashy TV friendly entertainment.
It does, like, dude, I grew up in my grandparents' house. They took care of us quite a bit, and soap operas are a part of my childhood. I've seen more episodes of Days of Our Lives and all that shit than I wish I could admit. But you know, it's like it's so campy and so it's TV soap opera, man.
I think the only point left that I want to make is how the film circles around on the same thing in terms of like our cold open. Besides our fake film within a film, we get this scene where like John Trevolta and this movie producer of like bad B movie type stuff, they're having a conversation, and it's about like finding a good screamer. Mm-hmm. And the film ends on this note too, where John had wired Nancy. I'm saying John as if it's the actor Jack.
Right. Jack.
He wires Nancy in this final scene, and he gets her scream on tape, and that's what's used in this bad film that we saw in the very beginning. Like it ends on a joke, but like
it's so tragic though.
It is.
It fucking breaks my heart. Like real talk. Because I think it opens up so much to that character, you know? Like I think the end of the film is what really keeps the film on such a high level for me. One of my favorite things in film is when it leaves you wondering what happens next, or like it keeps you thinking about characters after the fact, which I'm assuming this is what you're meaning when you're like, I can't stop thinking about this movie since I saw it.
Yeah.
Like I'm really frustrated by some things, but when I finished the film, I went downstairs. Elizabeth was watching The Office and drawing or something with the cat. And I was like, that was a really good movie. I was like, it was really sad, really good. It was a good movie. That's all I want to say. I was like heartbroken, partly because like that scene of like her death and the lead up to it is like so tough as a man to watch that. Like it's fucking terrible. That's like my fucking worst fears personified and visualized.
That's like your like 70s influence, like your bummer ending.
Yeah.
Where like the 80s haven't happened yet, and that feels like a trope within the 80s.
Ooh,
like damsel in distress type shit. It always has been, but there's something particular about the 80s where this would have been really played up.
Yes.
Like Jack rescuing Sally.
Yes.
And she dies.
She dies. That was like really good for the movie. Like
it was.
I was like, yes, okay. Because my frustrations with her throughout the film are like immediately subsided in the end, because it's like, yeah, she was stupid, but like, oh, God, that sucks. You know? Mm-hmm. I think, yeah, like you're right. It is kind of like a joke, but it adds such a level of deep sadness to the end of this film where like it's just sticking with me, man. I've got the theme stuck in my head because it fucking breaks your heart. Like it is. This is what I was talking about earlier with like getting down to. Unfortunately, I don't think this got recorded for our audience. But earlier off the air, you and I were talking about my music interest as of late, And it's really just been this reductionist approach. Like, I want to hear a single instrument and a key, and I want to try to feel something from it. And there's something about the key of this song, the theme in the end, where the emotion that is being given is just weeping. You know what I mean? Like, that's something about music that I've just grown to love so much since I started playing piano, was to like be able to appreciate, to be able to like emote through your hands and like try to say something. I think guitar, it was always really difficult for me to like try to play that, you know, like try to put emotion through. It may be just a limitation of the instrument. The guitar is a weird thing.
It is.
It's such a staple in certain aspects of music that I think it's hard to appreciate in some ways. But like something about piano and strings, like just your classical instruments, the ability to just emote through them in a way that like speaks beyond words, like this theme does this for me so much. And I think that like it adds so much extra weight that I felt like I was missing through a lot of the film, where like I just felt like I was just fucking smacked with it at the end. And especially Trevolta's scene of saying it's a good scream and like covering his ears. It's like the guy's an artist, you know, in his own right. And he is choosing to do this out of like just the purest sad. He knows like this is the best scream because it's actually someone being murdered. And he puts it on this fucking shit movie. And like, I don't know, man. I thought it was something like really spectacular. Something about that. There's a lot to be said about the shortcomings, but the ending of this film like really transcends that.
It does. It's the weirdest fucking thing.
You mentioned like a joke. It is kind of a joke. Like, that's the punchline.
Yes.
And I don't know, man. I was blown away by that. Like, real talk. It was a movie like unlike I've really seen before. It's like doing. I don't know if you've ever seen it. I think I've talked about it before. You ever seen A Bronx Tale? It's a De Niro film.
I have not seen that one.
You know, it's definitely like the playing into the tragedy. You know, Godfather, like, you know, mobster. You know, this is that plot point. You know, it's set in a different time, in a different. It's not like Italian mob, but obviously De Palma's pulling from Coppola and Hitchcock in those ways. And the movie's a lot more than that tragic drama. It's like tying in like what you said earlier with like those thriller and parody and like slasher parody, the overabundance of nudity in the beginning of the film. You know what I mean? Like, that's funny. Like, as a film goer, it's like, oh, I see what he was doing here. Like, oh, you might get like a pair of boobs like 2 to 3 times within a slasher film. Here's like 9 pairs in 3 minutes.
Right.
Like, it's joking on that. And
it's kind of novel because like this is 1981.
Right.
This is early in slasher history.
Right.
Like, there's no need to parody a slasher at this point in time.
Like, they sell. Like, this is like golden era of those. You know what I mean?
Like, people weren't tired of this yet.
Exactly.
But then, like, I know we're in the end game here. We're closing up.
Oh, you're fine.
But also at the same time, when the film decides to indulge in actual slasher influence, like in a serious way, it's done so artfully.
It's not like you're hearing those cheap ass special effects of like boards breaking in a cabin when Jason comes through.
Do you know what giallo is?
No.
It's a subgenre of horror. Like, it's Italian slasher,
right?
Essentially, like the original Suspiria, the Dario Argento film. Like, in Italian slashers, there's always this emphasis on unnatural lighting, like harsh, unnatural, like reds, like the beaming red throughout this film. When John Lithgow kills this first woman on a construction site, the murder is portrayed like through shadow, where he's like, the camera cuts out and you see his like silhouette.
Right.
Like, that's an Italian thing. It's weird seeing like this is an American thriller with like early art house European influence too.
Right.
It's a weird gumbo of of influence and genre coming
And, like,
together here.
The art house aspect plays throughout, but it's still American. You're so right, because I think our shortcomings that we're having, those can be forgiven by that art direction, which, like, I think it's really hard to see here as well. Again, we talked about it, like, it's taking an American event, a deeply American subject matter of conspiracy and assassination, and you're literally shown it throughout the movie with Red, White, and Blue and the Liberty Bell Parade, and it makes it feel so corn-fed.
Yeah.
But it's playing with these elements outside of traditional filmmaking, which, like, we didn't even talk about it, but, like, you know, the sound room, the editing room scenes, you know, we're getting these crazy 360 pans of, like, showing time passing in one shot type of, you know, these cuts, really smooth. The camera is on a dolly and it comes up into the corner of the room, and it's
beautifully choreographed.
Yes. There's a lot happening here, and it's hard to say it's not a masterpiece, but it's like, it's giving off such Everything Everywhere All at Once vibes, where it's like it's such a chaotic mess that it, like, becomes beyond words.
Yeah.
There's something about it here.
I'm so glad you got this out of this film.
Because, like, it's so interesting, because, again, when you talk about, like, from the end caps on this film, like, it's a perfect joke. It's delivered perfectly, and I think what makes it so digestible and forgiving in many ways is because it is doing that exact thing. It is telling a very tight story. Like, it's the perfect essay. You open up with your intro, you're going to make your claim, and you're going to say, I'm going to support this claim through the body of this essay. Mm-hmm. And our body is the whole film, and then you have, oh yeah, by the way, here's my theme again in the, I hate to, like, make this an English fucking history, or excuse me, an English lesson, but the film is crafted perfectly in the way that the script and the screenplay allow it to be excellent. And it comes across really bizarre because it's like, okay, this is a 80s movie that feels like a 70s film. It's playing on, like, the master directors of that time in their style. It's just really refreshing as a film goer. I'm like really fucking I was really passionate about it.
I'm glad that was the intended response.
I'm so glad. I've never really heard about anybody talk about this. Like,
dude, it was like a commercial failure.
Yeah.
Why though?
Yeah. I'm so glad that the Criterion Collection, for example, we talk about it all the time. And to be honest with you, I wish I owned more. You have a fucking crazy collection, by the way. You're fucking wild. Like, you're fucking crazy. Like, you have so much cool shit over here.
Hey, it's also July. About to be July.
Oh, yeah, man.
Barnes & Noble.
Criterion. Fuck you, motherfucker.
50% off sale.
I'm too poor. I can't do this.
No, we're going to blow some money.
Yeah, probably. But I'm glad younger generations or generations following have been able to curate. It gives such great new life and allows people like you and I to discover movies like this. And I'm really glad they're getting popular because, dude, Criterion cuts are on streaming services now. And I really feel like people can get more access to, like, really unique films like this, where I don't know that, like, they were being watched as much as they are now.
No, this has definitely brought, like, newfound popularity to obscure films.
I mean, film now is getting to the point where it is so decentralized, and people are able to make stories now that haven't, that the ideas that they're having now in the modern era are just, you're allowed to do so much now. And personally, I feel like the landscape that we're in now has really created deep appreciation for older films. At least for you and I definitely feel like as I'm getting older, I'm not interested in seeing every new movie and, like, trying to find out what's going to stick. I'm, like, really trying to find great film, whether it came out 20 years ago, 40 years ago, yesterday. Like, movies like this are gems, and I'm, like, never going to forget it. You know what I mean? That was really fucking good.
Thank God. I was afraid. I knew you would feel this way, but
You say this shit every time, and so do I.
There's always that fear.
Yeah, right.
Ratings?
Yeah, I feel like a good 8.5, 9. Like I feel really strong about a 9. 8.5 is like me on a bad day. I think 9 is like at the end of this podcast. Like I feel really solid about what I saw.
I think I'm also in like the light 9 category right now. This is the type of film that I don't feel like, in terms of weirder, well-crafted films, I don't feel weird about recommending to the everyday person. Like I could say, you should watch Blowout.
Right.
And I think 9 times out of 10, the person would enjoy it.
Right.
At the very least.
If someone was like, oh, I like the movie Face Off, you'd be like, hey, Trevolta, watch Blowout. Something that I wish I could express more, and we'll do it again maybe another time, but I love knowing how film is made, especially in the modern era, because it's so incredible, like the things they are able to do. But something about old school practical effects, man.
I thought about that during the scene where Jack rescues Sally from like the car underwater.
Great scene. God, I hate that we're trying to bring this shit up. But yes.
We're closing out, but like,
yes.
Real water.
Yes.
And as opposed to like CGI type shit.
It could have been really cheap. Like this could have been like really bad. Those moments.
Yeah.
And like the small things were like, oh, you get to see the gunman run out from under the bridge. Like small things like that.
And like not
you could miss that, by the way.
Like it's not given like a close-up scene explaining to you what's happening.
Right. There's a lot of small things like that where, unfortunately, I don't think we talk about them enough, but they're definitely there, and when you see it, you'll know.
We can't hit everything.
Right. Except our wives. Speaking of which, we got to get this thing wrapped up.
Yeah. Austin, it is your turn to recommend a thing. What is that thing?
Fuck, I don't know, man.
I know you were feeling iffy before we went into this.
I have a couple different options, but I think I want to hit this. I want to hit this movie while it's still fresh in my mind, and I think the other ones I'm going to save for sometime soon. But
ooh, okay.
I really want to talk about a movie that I feel should be loved by all, but it's not for everyone.
Are we going into like nostalgia again for you? Or is this that new film that you teased to me before we recorded tonight?
I think this movie will be a nostalgia film for me in about 10 years. And I think it's going to be one of the movies that we've talked about nostalgia films for me recently, where like, you know, Tron, Secret Life of Walter Mitty, Warrior, like these are some of the movies in my adolescence that made me. I think this movie is going to be like my early 20s movie that made me.
Okay.
We're going to talk about like one of my favorite movies that I've only seen once, which I think is like really like, I don't want to wear this movie out. It's like Moneyball. Like I know it'll be there for me when I'm ready. We're going to watch a 2020 film called Minari.
You had talked about this on the last episode.
Yes. It's like been living really fresh in my mind, and for many reasons. One of them is because I'm trying to learn a song from the score on the keys, but this is a movie that like makes me appreciate family like more than any film I've ever seen. And it is heavy. This is a very heavy movie.
Okay.
I feel like I need to just get it over with and like get it out of the way so I never have to talk about it again on the podcast. But this is a film that is a perspective on the American dream and like trauma. And it's one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen.
I've heard nothing but great things about this film.
This is like a movie that I might cry on the podcast. It's that good. I think it's one of the most powerful films I've ever seen.
This is like serious slice of life drama and
yes.
stuff. We haven't hit that in a while.
Mm-hmm. I
can't remember the last time that we did. Manchester by the Sea?
Yeah, probably. This is one of the best films I've ever seen, Getter. Like, I can't wait for you to see it. I'm not even kidding. Like, it's one of the best movies I've ever seen.
Is this, God, what is that actor's name? He's from...
Steven Yeun.
Yeah, from Nope, Walking Dead.
Plays Invincible.
Beef.
Yep.
Recently, which I loved.
It's that good, man. I really am excited for you to see it.
Okay. Well, I'm prepared to feel very sad and depressed.
You won't feel depressed, but it'll definitely make you feel.
All right. I'm ready for that, man.
All right, man. That was fucking great. I love that movie so much. Until next time, Getter, if you could do me the honors.
Adios.